of you all here today. We just offer a few prayers before we begin. चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपकदामह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकं। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरु श्रीयुतः पदकमलं श्रीगुरून् वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातं सहगणा रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं चैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधा कृष्णपदान् सहगणा ललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितं च हे कृष्ण करुणा सिन्धु दीनबन्धो जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिकान्त राधाकान्त नमोस्तुते तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये वंशकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्येव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। Hare Krishna. Very grateful and happy to be amidst all of you all here today in ISKCON Boston. I very fondly remember my visit to ISKCON Boston many years back, and I remember the Sunday feast that I gave there. So today we are going to be speaking on something from the Ramayana that will help us understand the mood and the mindset of the various characters of the Ramayana. So all of us have been experiencing Ramayana for years. The world has been experiencing Ramayana for hundreds of years, literally. And Ramayana is not new. And every year, almost every village in every city in India, there are lectures and discussions based on the Ramayana. And no one feels it is enough. I have been myself speaking Ramayana for more than 10 years. And no matter how much I speak, people don't feel it's enough. That's how the scriptures are. It's just an ocean of knowledge, an ocean of understanding. So the more you understand the scriptures, actually the more you understand yourself. Like if you give money to somebody, he will take it. If you give some kind of a dress to someone, some clothes to somebody, he'll take it. But if you ask someone who has just finished eating, do you want to eat more? But nobody can eat more, right? Similarly, when you digest, when you study the Ramayana, and you are enjoying it and relishing it, and somehow, no matter how much you eat or no matter how much you intake, it doesn't feel it is enough. Ramayana is not like food that you eat. You eat, your hunger is satisfied, and then you say it's enough. The understanding of knowledge is so very deep. One of the names of the Lord is called Aparyamrita. This is a very beautiful word that describes the Supreme Lord. Aparyamrita means the one whose beauty never fades. You can enjoy the beauty of the Lord perennially. Like if you look at the photographs of the deities, and you look at the beauty of the photographs of the deities, over a period of time, the beauty of the deities increases, enhances with time. And that is how the nature of the Lord is. The nature of the Lord is that his pastimes, his beauty, his holy names keep enhancing in their efficacy, in their ability to attract our hearts. So what I'm going to do is, I'm going to just pick up something small from different sections of the Ramayana, different Kans of the Ramayana. I'm not sure how much time we have, but at least we try to discuss a little bit from every section of the Ramayana and learn what we can learn from these sections. From the Balakand of the Ramayana, we can learn about the purpose of the four incarnations of the Lord. Ram, Lakshman, Bharat, and Shatrughna are considered to be the four different incarnations of the Supreme Lord. In fact, Ram, Lakshman, Bharat, and Shatrughna are considered to be the expansions of Vasudeva, Sankarshan, Pradyumna, and Aniruddha. On another level, they are also considered to be expansions of the four instruments, Shankh, Chakra, Gada, Padma. The Supreme Lord Himself descends in the form of these four brothers. So each brother teaches one thing important for us in our spiritual journeys. Ram, what does Ram teach? Of the many things he teaches, one of the things that Ram actually teaches is respect to elders. In today's age, nobody listens to anybody, right? In today's age, sons are not listening to their parents, younger brothers are not listening to their elder brothers, disciples are not listening to their spiritual master. So Ram descended to demonstrate to the world that accepting the words of seniors is very important. And he established this as one of the prominent limbs of Dharma. So Ram went to the extent of following his father's and his stepmother's instructions by going to the forest for 14 years just because once he was told, go. That's all. Ram didn't argue. Ram didn't fight. Ram didn't have big discussions and debates. He just left. Now, obviously, we are not expected to do something as big as that. What we are expected to do is at least respect the people who are senior to us by age, senior to us by knowledge. The scriptures talk about Vayovriddha. Vayovriddha means those who are senior to us by age. And then the scriptures talk about Jnana Vriddha. That means those who are senior to us by knowledge. And then the scriptures talk about Shila Vriddha. That means those who are senior to us by character. The scriptures highly recommend that we should emulate and learn and respect these seniors. Lakshman, what does he come to teach us? Lakshman comes to teach us Sheshatvam. Sheshatvam means servitorship. The duty of a servant is to give pleasure to his master. The one who is constantly giving pleasure to his master through his service is known as Shesha. That is the definition of the word Shesha. So essentially, Lakshman is teaching us that we should not be living a life for anybody else, not even for ourselves. Our very existence should be for the pleasure of the Supreme Lord. Whoever does anything for the pleasure of the Lord is known as Shesha. And that's why one of the names of Lakshman in the spiritual world is known as Adi Shesha. That means he is the original Shesha. He is the original servant, initial servant. So Lakshman serves the Lord in all ways, by the body, by his words, by his mind. The very purpose of our limbs is to serve the Lord. If you go to a temple and just put some donation, that is not what service is. That's not the only seva. Many times we go in the temple and sit for some time and we have so many complaints. No cleanliness, no water, this is not good, that is not good. But the question is, do we get up and go and do some seva? Do we get up and go and do some service? Have we removed even one particle of dust which is there in the temple? Then how can we get what is known as Seva Siddhi? Not only Ram was a prince, but even Lakshman was a prince. Have you seen one prince serve another prince? Usually it never happens. Usually, a prince will have several servants, but Lakshman, though he was a prince, he went to the forest as a servant of Lord Ram. When Ram saw the attitude of Lakshman's service, he was so impressed. He told Lakshman, "You are Bhavagya, Dharmagya, and Kritagya." Bhavagya means you know exactly what is the mood of your master. Ram said, "How do you understand me so well?" He was so impressed with Lakshman because Lakshman understood things that Ram never even told him. Just like when they were in the forest, Ram asked Lakshman to build a cottage, a house for them to stay. And Lakshman built a beautiful house. And inside the house, he created several rooms. And one room he created where Ram and Sita can have privacy. Created a room where they can cook. He created a room where they can worship and perform yajnas. And he also created a room where Ram and Sita can have a private time. But he didn't create a room for himself in the same house so that Ram and Sita get enough privacy. Now, as an elder brother, Ram was feeling very odd and shy to tell Lakshman that I need some privacy with Sita. But Lakshman, without even Ram telling him, he understood the need of Ram. And that actually shows that he understood the power of the emotions of Ram. Therefore, he is known as Bhavagya. And he is known as Dharmagya because he knows what is the dharma of a servant. So now he could have easily created a room for himself in the same house. But no, Lakshman doesn't do that. In fact, when they were staying in Chitrakoot, Lakshman created a house for Ram and Sita on top of a mountain. And he created a house for himself on the other mountain, opposite, from where he would guard Sita and Ram. So he would give them a distance also, he would give them their privacy, but at the same time, he could keep watch on them all night long so that he could protect them if there was a need. So he knew the dharma of a servant, therefore he's known as Dharmagya. And he's known as Kritagya because he was such an expert. Krita means karya or actions. So Ram once asked him, when he was building these houses and he was building boats, Ram asked him, "How did you learn all this? We both studied in the same Gurukul under the same teacher, but how did you learn all these, different skills?" And Lakshman gave a very interesting answer. Lakshman told Ram, "My dear Ram, I learned all the skills that are required to be a servant, and you learned all the skills that are required to be a master. And essentially, we both learned skills that are essential for each other." So Lakshman was so amazing that he never thought about himself all life long. Bharat, Bharat's birth is even more glorious than Lakshman. Lakshman served Ram according to his will. Lakshman wanted to go to the forest, but Ram didn't want him to go to the forest. But in spite of being denied, Lakshman still went. After the coronation of Lord Ram, he wanted to coronate one of the three prince among the three other brothers. He asked Lakshman, "You have worked so hard for 14 years. Can I coronate you?" Lakshman said, "I'm already coronated. I'm coronated as a king in the kingdom of Seva, service. I don't want to be coronated as a prince in any other kingdom." And he said, "Ask Bharat. He accepts whatever you ask." Then Ram asked Bharat, "Will you become the prince?" Bharat didn't say anything. He just agreed. Because the nature of Bharat is that he just agrees to whatever Ram says. And so Lakshman does what he feels is best. But Bharat, he doesn't have an opinion of himself. Whatever Ram does, he just agrees. He doesn't have his own idea. Lakshman has his own idea of how to serve. But Bharat has no idea of his own. He just follows what Ram says without any personal consideration. And this is known as Bharatantriyam. The word Bharata comes from three letters, Bha, Ra, Ta. And the word Bharata means the one whose Bhava, Raga, and Tala are in perfect sync with Ram. So Bharat is a person who completely identifies with Ram's instructions. So Lakshman identifies with Ram's body and he continues to serve Ram's body, but Bharat continues to serve the instructions of Ram. Shatrughna, the fourth brother, he demonstrates something more interesting than Bharat and Lakshman. He demonstrates the importance of serving the servant of Ram. Shatrughna does not serve Ram directly, but Shatrughna serves Bharat, who serves Ram. So Lakshman and Bharat represents Shesha and Bharatantriyam, service to the Lord. Lakshman and Bharat represent intensely serving the Lord. And Shatrughna demonstrates Shesha and Bharatantriyam to the servants of the Lord. Shatrughna is so amazing that in spite of being very much attracted to Ram, he kept his attraction aside and focused on his service to the Vaishnavas. All of us in our own spiritual lives, we have to really understand how important and valuable Shatrughna's contribution is, and how important and valuable the mindset of Shatrughna is, which is purely to serve great souls. It is easy to serve the Lord because the Lord is so amazing and so great. But it is not easy to serve the great devotees of the Lord because you might even apparently see some flaws in them. You might, because they are human beings after all. But someone who has actually the desire and the desperation to serve the devotee of the Lord is considered to be a great person. That's what Shatrughna is. In the Ayodhya Kand of the Ramayana, I would like to pick up one small episode that beautifully demonstrates something very sweet. So when Ram left for the forest, he left with Lakshman and Sita, and Sumantra also accompanied them to lead them up to the forest on a chariot. So while they were on their journey towards the forest, at that point they come across this powerful tribal chief whose name is Guha. So Guha is a wonderful devotee of the Lord, and he is, he's at the banks of the Ganga. And Guha has been the very close friend of Dasharath Maharaj, the father of Ram. So when somehow, Ram reaches where Guha is, Guha comes to welcome him. And he welcomes him with so many opulent things. And Ram doesn't accept any of it, except honey and some fruits. So once they settle down, Guha makes arrangements for Ram, Lakshman and Sita to take rest. He spreads out beds for them made of grass and flowers. Sita and Ram both lie down to take rest. But Lakshman doesn't sleep. How can you sleep when you see that the Lord is not in a comfortable situation? How can a servant sleep when his master is not peaceful, not in a comfortable situation? So Lakshman just couldn't sleep. And Lakshman was, practically roaming around in the forest. And Ram and Sita was sleeping. Lakshman was having his bow and arrow with him and moving around Ram in circles. When Guha saw Lakshman moving around in circles around Ram, Guha, his love for Ram, it made him doubt Lakshman. So, when he saw this, scene of Lakshman guarding Sita and Ram going around there with a bow and arrow, Guha walked up to Lakshman and he asked him, "Why are you not sleeping?" So Lakshman said, "When I see Ram sleeping on the floor, I've seen him sleeping on the floor even during the Gurukul days. But I've never seen Sita sleep on the floor. And how can I see them sleeping on the floor and be peaceful? I take a vow that I'll not sleep for the next 14 years. Only when I go back to Ayodhya after 14 years and see Ram and Lakshman resting on their own bed, my eyes will remember sleep. Until then, there is no sleep for me." Now, Guha when he heard this, he had his own doubts. He realized maybe Lakshman wants to harm Ram and Sita, and that is why he's roaming around them with a bow and arrow in his hand. See, when you have a lot of love for somebody, you become overprotective of that person, and in that desire to become overprotective of that person, you might doubt everybody else around. So Guha was so overprotective of Ram and Sita that he began to doubt Lakshman's intentions. He said, one brother has taken away the kingdom, and the other brother has come to make sure that Ram never comes back to claim the kingdom. And therefore, he said, I should guard Ram and Sita from Lakshman. So Lakshman was, roaming around Sita and Ram who was sleeping, and Guha was roaming around Lakshman in circles. So when the soldiers of Guha saw their master roaming around with a bow and arrow in the middle of the night, they got a doubt about the intention of their master. They started thinking, why is our master roaming around like this with a bow and arrow in the night? Maybe he has some wrong intentions to harm Ram and Lakshman and Sita. And they wanted to protect Ram, Lakshman, and Sita from Guha. And they started moving around in circles, hiding obviously from Guha, but very much, in visibility. And they were guarding Ram, Lakshman, and Sita from Guha. As a result, the Acharyas explained that no one slept that night except Ram and Sita. Everybody else was awake. So the Acharyas explained that when you see the beauty of Ram, when you see the beauty of the Supreme Lord, you forget all understanding of sleep. So sleep is very important for human beings, right? For everyone, people love sleep. In fact, people can sleep for hours and hours together. And they just love that idea of sleeping. It's such a cozy and such a beautiful experience. But for someone who's attracted to the Supreme Lord, sleep loses its beauty because the person is attracted to something more beautiful and more higher. And that is what we learned from this beautiful episode of Ram and Sita sleeping. So why do devotees attend Mangal Aarati at 4 o'clock in the morning, 4:30 in the morning, 5 o'clock in the morning? Why do you think, devotees get up so early in the morning to go and attend Mangal Aarati? It's simply because the devotees are attracted to the beauty of the Lord. And because they're so attracted to the beauty of the Lord, they lose their sleep. They're not attracted to that, especially the early morning sleep is so attractive, right? Just when you have to get up and you sleep a little half an hour more, it's such a pleasing experience. For the devotees, they are ready to give up that pleasing experience to go and have darshan of the Lord, to go and see the beauty of the Lord, because they consider that beauty to be more beautiful than the beauty of sleep. The third section of the Ramayana, the Aranyakand, has so many amazing, beautiful things to teach us. I'm going to focus on one small aspect of Aranyakand. So it is explained that when Ram, Lakshman, and Sita walked in the forest, they had a particular way of walking. Ram would walk in the front, Sita would walk in the middle, and Lakshman would walk in the back. They would walk in a line. The interesting thing was, when Ram would walk in the front, Ram would walk with his back straight, erect, and his head held high. And Sita would walk behind him. Her eyes would be constantly on the back of Ram. She just loved the way Ram's back looked. And Sita would very consciously walk towards the left of Ram, keeping herself a little to the left of Ram. Because when Ram would walk, his footprint would appear on the forest path. Sita would carefully avoid stepping on the footprint of Lord Ram. Why would Sita avoid stepping on the footprint of Lord Ram? Because she felt the footprint of Lord Ram is very sacred. So she didn't want to step on the footprint of Lord Ram. And Lakshman would walk behind Sita. He would carefully not step on the footprint of Ram and Sita, and he would walk a little towards the left. Why did they walk towards the left? Because they would keep the footprint of the Lord towards their left. Their heart is where the left is, right? So they would actually prefer to keep the footprint of the Lord towards the left, respectfully. And that respect between these three personalities was so amazing. In Vrindavan, when Krishna would walk on the sands of Vrindavan, all the residents, the cows and the gopas, they would follow Krishna, right, into the forest. And though the cows and the gopas would follow Krishna into the forest, none of them stepped on the footprint of Krishna. Why? Because the footprint of the Lord is known as Tadiya. Anything connected to the Lord is known as Tadiya. Tadiya means that which is worshipable. And therefore, the devotees of the Lord are so careful of anything connected to the Lord that they do not disrespect it. When all the sages in the forest, they saw Sita, Ram and Lakshman walking in the forest, they actually felt the Omkar mantra personified as walking. Om, the sages chant Om all the time, right? When the sages saw Ram, Lakshman and Sita walking, they felt Omkar personified as walking. The word Om has three letters, A, U and Ma. Om, A, U, Ma. The word A represents Lord Ram. In fact, anything first represents Ram. In any aspect, the first thing represents the Supreme Lord. Just like in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna speaks about so many things that represent him. Among animals, he's the lion. Among the birds, he's the peacock. Among akshara, among letters, he is the letter A. The first letter in the alphabets represents the Supreme Lord. A. And U is the energy of the Lord. That is Mother Sita. It represents the potency of the internal potency of the Lord. So A represents the Supreme Lord, U represents the internal potency of the Lord, and Ma represents the living entity, Jivatma. Lakshman represents the living entity that is walking in the forest to the Om. So the idea of how Lakshman and Sita, they were so in alignment with what with the mood of Ram, with the presence of Ram, is just so amazing. So it is explained that Mother Sita, when she was traveling the forest through the forest with Ram Lakshman, this was the first time that she was actually experiencing forest life. She had never ever seen a forest in her life because she lived in the comforts of a palace. But Sita was so amazing that she very easily adopted to the forest life. And as she adopted to the forest life, she could actually learn so many amazing things from the forest. It is very important that human beings learn to be flexible in life. A lot of times, we tend to have rigid thoughts about how life should be. But really, does life really work in the way we want it to work? It never works in that way. Life always works in a way that is different from what we expect, what we perceive of. And life always ends up in putting us in surprises. When life puts us in surprises, how do we learn to deal with it? Are we flexible like Sita, or do we become rigid? Do we become rigid in expectations from life? The reality is, no matter what life throws at us, we have to learn to enjoy life and enjoy whatever is available to us. Sita, when she was in the palace, she enjoyed the biggest of luxuries. But when she was in the forest, she enjoyed the simplest of things. She enjoyed the flight of the butterflies. She enjoyed the sound of the bees. She learned from the bears how to extract honey from honeycombs. She learned from elephants to find water even on hilltops. So she learned so many things from animals in the forest. So now, imagine somebody who lived such an opulent life and suddenly has to live in a forest where there is nothing available. And that shows how flexible Sita was. And from her, we can learn a little bit about flexibility in our own lives. Obviously, we will never be able to be in a situation where we'll be sent to the forest to learn. But a little adjustment when we go through difficulties and shortcomings in our own life is always good. When Lakshman, he built this beautiful cottage for the pleasure of Sita and Ram. And when he built this beautiful cottage, um, Ram was so impressed. He embraced Lakshman and he said something amazing. In fact, he called Lakshman as Prabhu at that point in time. Study the Valmiki Ramayana. This is one place where Ram calls Lakshman Prabhu. So now, why? And Ram told Lakshman that um, you have lost your father, but I have not lost mine. So now the question is, how do we say that Ram and Lakshman are the same father? But how does Ram say that you have lost your father, I have not lost mine? Because he found Dashrath, his father, in his brother. You know what happens is, a lot of times we lose people that we love. We do lose people that we love. But when we lose people that we love, the question is, can we find an element of that person that we lost in another person in our family? Sometimes it is so powerfully visible and evident. Ram strongly felt that Dasharath has not gone from my life. Dasharath has come in the form of Lakshman again. And Lakshman was taking care of Ram, just like a father would take care of his son in the forest. So much care and so much love. It is very important to find someone who can actually love us genuinely and care for us genuinely. Very often, there are people around us who do that, but we don't recognize them and we take them for granted. It is important to appreciate anything that someone does for us. Ram, whenever Lakshman did anything for him, he didn't spare a single moment to appreciate Lakshman. Rather, he didn't spare a single moment where he didn't appreciate Lakshman. He appreciated Lakshman for every single thing that he did for him. And that is how their bondage, the way they connected with each other, grew so powerfully. Um, a very important and a very beautiful understanding from the Ramayana comes in the Aranya Kanda of the Ramayana, where Ram, Lakshmana, and Sita are in the forest, and they were, Ravan comes to kidnap Sita. So it is explained that when Ravan comes to kidnap Sita and he does kidnap her, Jatayu comes in between and fights with Ravan. And Jatayu tries to stop Ravan from kidnapping Sita. And eventually Ravan cuts off the wings of Jatayu, and Jatayu is dying, literally. So now, the interesting thing here is that Jatayu sacrificed his life while fighting against Ravan, but to protect Sita and to help Ram. In the same story, we find another person who martyred himself. This idea of martyrdom is such a powerful idea. Anywhere you see sacrifice, anywhere you see someone dying for a great cause, it gives goosebumps, literally, right? You hear stories of army men actually sacrificing their life for the sake of the country so selflessly. It actually sends goosebumps. It really makes you so amazed by the sacrifice, because we all live selfish lives, and anybody who lives selfish lives, they can't think of sacrificing anything for the sake of others. But whenever you hear stories of sacrifice, whenever you hear stories of someone who has given up practically their life for the sake of somebody else, it really leads to a lot of awe and reverence towards that person. So, in this section of the Ramayana, where the kidnapping of Sita happens, there are two people who sacrifice themselves. Marich, he takes the form of this golden deer and eventually he's killed by Ram. He sacrifices his life so that Ravan can execute his mission. And in the same story, we find Jatayu. He sacrifices his life for the sake of protecting Sita and for the sake of serving Ram, and he dies in the hands of Ravan. So a lot of people they feel that Marich is so fortunate that he died in the hands of Ram. But the Acharyas explain that it's not important how he died. What is more important is why he died. Intention is very important, more important than action. Apparently, Jatayu died in the hand of Ravan and Marich died in the hand of Ram. From an external point of view, Marich seems more fortunate because while dying, he died in the hands of Ram. But the Acharyas explain that Jatayu is more fortunate because he died while serving Ram. So at the time of death, when Marich was just about to die, in the voice of Ram, he shouted out the name of Lakshman and Sita. If he was really a devotee of Ram, he should have shouted out the name of Ram while dying. But even while dying, Marich ended up accomplishing the service or the task for Ravan. So that means even in the last moment of his death, he was serving Ravan. And Jatayu, after being cut off, his wings and legs being cut off by Ravan, he was dying literally, but he held his breath so that he can give the message of Sita to Ram before dying. And the last moments, he gave the message of Sita, and he died in the hands of Ram, in the arms of Ram, and chanting the name of Ram. So imagine what a glorious death Jatayu had. What an amazing death Jatayu had. Apparently, from the point of view of externals, Marich he died in the hands of Ram. But from the point of view of actually spiritual understanding, Jatayu accomplished much more. He in fact ended up pleasing the Lord. And the interesting thing is, for the sacrifice that Marich did for Ravan, what did he get in return? Ravan did not even return back to cremate Marich's body. He did not even send anyone to cremate Marich's body. He just completely forgot about Marich and went away with Sita. That is the kind of ingratitude we find in serving those people who are who have mundane desires in life, material desires in life. Those who have mundane desires, they don't care for us. We may do a lot of service to them. We may actually sacrifice our time, sacrifice our family time, we may sacrifice our health, we may sacrifice so much for serving mundane people. But remember, they're not grateful to you. And they're not bothered about you. Even if you die, they'll just walk away, they'll find somebody else. But Krishna, the Supreme Lord, is so amazing. If anyone does anything for him, he goes out of his way to take care of them. Ram, he personally cremated Jatayu. Imagine his wife was missing and he was in a hurry to find Sita. But in spite of that hurry, he took out time to cremate Jatayu with his own hands. And he performed the cremation in a way that a son would perform for his father. He actually chanted the mantras that are supposed to be chanted when a son performs the Shraddha for his father. And that is the way in which Ram reciprocated with Jatayu. And obviously, Jatayu also got to return to the spiritual world as an eternal servant of Lord Ram. And that is the kind of power we find in the Ramayana. That is the kind of power that we find in the characters of the Ramayana. When in the Kishkinda Kanda of the Ramayana, the next section, we find that Hanuman comes in front of Ram for the first time. And we find that Hanuman spends just a few seconds, literally, few seconds, explaining who he is and explaining who Sugriv is. Just a little bit of background. When Ram and Lakshman hear Hanuman speak, Ram is amazed. Ram is amazed at the quality of speech of Hanuman. Every word that comes out from Hanuman's mouth touches Ram to the core. and he's so amazed by the descriptions and what Hanuman speaks that he really becomes impressed. So Ram talks to Lakshman about the quality of Hanuman's speech. He said, "This person is just so amazing. There was such clarity in his speech. Whatever he wanted to express, he expressed so beautifully. He never stopped. He never broke or ate up words. His speech was not displeasing to the ears. His voice was situated in Madhyama Swara." So see what happens is when your voice is too shrill, it's too painful to hear. And when your voice is too soft, it's very difficult to hear. But when your voice is in the medium pitch, the exact pitch that is pleasing to the heart, you can hear for hours together also. So Hanuman was speaking in Madhyama Swara, and Hanuman was speaking from different parts of his body. Some of the words were coming out from his palate, tongue hitting the palate. Some of the words were coming out from his stomach. Some of the words were coming out from his chest. So Ram was saying this person knows how to speak in which words to speak from where, and the speech of Hanuman had so many good qualities. It reflected his sanskar. It reflected his understanding of grammar. It reflected his pronunciations. It reflected so many aspects of Hanuman's learning. And Ram says he spoke avalambita, means he spoke without a stop, like the constant flow of a river water. And his speech was krama, that means it had proper pronunciations according to the laws of speech. So Ram was so impressed with Hanuman. Ram tells Lakshman that if an enemy lifts his sword and is about to slash a person, and that person hears Hanuman's words, the enemy will lose his anger. That is the kind of pleasing nature of Hanuman's words. And so imagine, how Ram was impressed with Hanumanji's, qualities, and Hanumanji's, divine personality. And that's how we find that every aspect of, the speech of Hanuman had so much of loftiness, so much of depth, and so much of amazing insights in it. I'm going to speak one last thing and we will stop today. I'm going to speak something from the Yuddha Kand of the Ramayana. So when we look at the fight of Ram and Lakshman, Ram and Ravan, the final fight of Ram and Ravan, how do we look at it? So should we say it is like a marriage when, usually there's a lot of excitement in marriages. And when a bride and groom, they are married, and the marriage is happening with the right rituals and with the right, in the right mood and every possible way, there is a lot of excitement in the marriage. So now, do we say that Ram and Ravan's fight was as exciting as a beautifully conducted marriage? Now, actually, if you look at it from a technical point of view, the celebration of a marriage is for a day or two. But the test of a marriage is for a lifetime. The inspiration that people receive in that 1-2 days of the marriage, they have to use that inspiration to live and obey the laws of marriage for an entire lifetime. Why are marriages made so elaborate? There is so much singing, so much eating, so much of celebration, so much of happiness that happens in marriages, so that people remember the experience of happiness and they actually survive through the ups and downs of their life together. Similarly, what is the meaning of Ram's victory over Ravan? Is it just about celebration? Ram won, wow, amazing. No, there are some deeper insights into the fight of Ram and Ravan, and victory of Ram over Ravan. When Ram was fighting with Ravan, many amazing things happened. One of the things that happened was um, Vibhishan asked Ram a question. So Ravan comes with his golden chariot. So Ravan's chariot is a huge golden chariot made of pure gold, protective armors all around, and he has 10 horses and an amazing chariot driver, and his chariot is equipped with all the most sophisticated weapons and missiles. And Ram is standing on the ground over there, and Vibhishan asks Ram, "My dear Lord, how will you fight against Ravan? Ravan is so equipped. He has so many weapons. He has an armor. He has a chariot driver. He has a chariot. He's so well equipped. You don't even have slippers." If you remember, Bharat took away Ram's slippers long back. So Ram has nothing literally with him. He's standing on the ground. He doesn't have an armor. He doesn't have any kind of protection. He doesn't have access to too many missiles. How is he going to fight against Ravan? So when Vibhishan asks this question, Ram tells him, "I already have a chariot. I'm standing on a chariot. I have an armor. I have enough weapons. I don't have to worry." So Vibhishan is wondering, where is the chariot? Where are the weapons? Where is the armor? And then Ram explains what the whole idea of standing on a chariot is according to him. He says that I am standing on Dharma Ratha. The chariot on which I'm standing is the chariot of Dharma. And Dharma is my vehicle. And I'm riding on the chariot of Dharma. And I'm adorning an armor. What is the armor that I'm adorning? The armor of good qualities, Sadguna. Good qualities are like an armor that protects you from all kinds of attacks. And I'm carrying a weapon, and I'm carrying the weapon of knowledge. Knowledge is like a powerful weapon that can fight against all kind of ignorance. And he says, I also have a driver, and my driver is known as sadhana. The spiritual practices that we do in our life are actually like a driver that drives the chariot of our life ahead. Ram is saying, with all this, I am fully equipped to fight against Ravan. While Ram and Ravan's fight was going on, Indra, the king of the heavens, he had a doubt because he felt that Ravan is going to win this war. Why did Indra have this doubt? Indra had this doubt because he had fought many wars with Ravan in the past. And in every war, Indra lost against Ravan. Hence, it's very difficult for him to imagine that anybody can defeat Ravan. So the gods, they don't understand the divinity of Ram many times. They doubt the divinity of Ram many times. And therefore, Indra was having a doubt whether who will win. This is a typical doubting devotee. Many times, we as devotees also have our doubts whether Ram will actually be able to help us or not. We actually start doubting the capacity of the Supreme Lord. So Indra was doubting who will win. Now, if he was not in doubt, he would have sent his own chariot for Ram to fight in the beginning itself. But Indra was very doubtful, and therefore he did not send the chariot in the beginning. He delayed sending the chariot. However, when he was very, very sure that Ram is going to win for sure, he was like dead sure, then he sent his chariot. Now, the interesting thing is, imagine if Ram had to analyze Indra's actions. What would he have thought about Indra? So, Ram, when Indra sent the chariot, he accepted it immediately. He didn't say, "Hey, where was your chariot at the beginning? Why didn't you send me the chariot at the beginning itself?" The nature of God is that He doesn't look at our past. If God has to look at our past, then none of us have any chance of getting connected with God. If God has to look at our past actions, none of us qualify to become devotees of God. But the Supreme Lord is so amazing that He keeps aside His ego and He deals with us with love. Ram accepted the chariot of Indra and he is declaring to the world that when someone wants to do something good to you and don't remember the past, just accept the good that is there today. Unfortunately, what happens is we are so much caught up by the past bad that we forget the present good. And therefore, it is explained that Ram is amazing that he doesn't look at our past actions. He only looks at our present contribution. And when he looks at our present contribution, he is really so impressed that this person has come to serve me. He doesn't think, Arey, where were you so many lifetimes when you were enjoying yourself? And Ram remembers every way we were enjoying ourselves, right? So Ram doesn't think about the past. He straight away thinks about what you are ready to do today. And if somebody is ready to serve the Lord today, the Lord just accepts that person. And that is how we find the entire story of the Ramayana is so very relevant and so very beautiful and practical in our lives. Every aspect of the Ramayana can be seen in so many amazing ways that we can apply it, we can learn from it, and we can uplift ourselves so much. I would like to end at this point in time. If anybody has any questions or comments, please go ahead and we can have some discussions.
Dear devotees, unmute you. Ask the question.
So while you are formulating your questions, I would like to just share some things with you all. So in the recent past, I have been developing some courses that are based on our scriptures, very, very powerful courses. So I've developed courses for children, for young kids. I've developed powerful courses for adults, for youth, for so many parts of life. And I especially developed courses for the corporates. And I've been introduced by Vanamali Prabhu that I have been teaching in several management colleges in India, including the IIMs and NMIMS and so many other places. And I developed a course on leadership based on Ramayana Mahabharata. So I'm sure in many of you all who are working in the corporate world do attend leadership courses and do attend courses to upgrade yourself. It is so very important to upgrade ourselves at every point in our lives. And therefore, these courses that I've designed are designed in a way that can actually uplift us from our career perspective. But along with our career, it will also help us upgrade our knowledge of the scriptures. So these courses that I teach in the management schools in India are very, very well structured and very well accepted. Of a rating of 7, I usually get a rating of almost 6.7. By the students. That means the students really connect with these courses well. And there are many people who are executives in different organizations, CEOs sometimes that really, love these courses. So for the first time, I'm actually conducting one course on leadership on a public platform. So I will actually be teaching leadership for 5 days, 5 evenings India time, 7 to 9, starting from 23rd. It will be over 2 weekends. So if any of you all are interested in being a part of this course, just let us know and we will be happy to connect you all and have you all as a part of this course. Vanamali Prabhu can help us, connect, or even Rajkoti Prabhu. They will help you get all the details about the course and the content of the course. And if any of you are interested in this leadership course, please do let me know. It will be an honor to have you all. So yes, please, if anybody has any questions or comments before we end.
Krishna Prabhu. Have a good question. Prabhu, you explained about Lord Ram, how he ignored Indra's, Indra, he sent the chariot at the last minute, even though he did not, he keeps the ego aside and he cares about the devotee. Indra. So how do we in our life also, like say, one surrenders to Krishna or one wants to be very serious of us with Krishna consciousness, what are the things we can see in our life? Could you please explain how he reciprocates with us?
As I said, the Lord does not look at our past, He looks at our present. So, no matter what we have been in the past, the Lord doesn't care for it. He is focused on what we are in the present. Similarly, in our own relationships and in our own connections with devotees, we have a tendency to hold grudges. We have a tendency to hold negativity in our hearts. If somebody has spoken something about us long back, we hold it so much and we remember it so much. From this one story, we can just think about this one fact that imagine the Lord could have taken Indra. He fought for 7 days in the fight. The battle between Ram Ravan lasted for 7 days, and for 7 days Ram never had a chariot. Ram could have said, "Hey, what is this last day you're coming to give me a chariot?" He could have just shot him down. Said, "Hell with your chariot. I don't need your chariot." No, but Ram sees this person has a desire to serve now. Let me accept it. And very respectfully, he accepts it. So, if somebody has had some bad equation with us in the past, let us not brood on it. Let us not keep that in our mind so much that we forget the present. And therefore, it's very important for devotees to let go of the past and focus on the present, just like Ram did.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Anything
Hare Krishna,
else?
Prabhu.
Yes.
Can I ask a quick question, Prabhu?
Please.
Prabhuji, there are the example that you gave of Indra and how Lord Ram forgave everything of the past and just accepted Indra's service as it is. I see there are two extremes of it. One is Lord forgives and we should concentrate on the service so that our past doesn't hamper us. Another is, anyway, the Lord doesn't remember in the past, so even if we are a little relaxed in our service, it's okay, but the future will become more. So how do we come over our own carelessness in our service so that we can be more focused?
We should not take advantage of the mercy of the Lord, rather disadvantage of the mercy of the Lord. So the Lord is Patita Pavan. He is not Kapata Pavan. Patita Pavan means that He is merciful to those who are weak. Those who are weak and those who are struggling, the Lord is very merciful to them. But those who are hypocrites and those who are duplicitous, the Lord doesn't care for them. If you have a weakness, there's no problem. The Lord will accept you. But if you are smart, or rather over smart, then the Lord will, He is smarter than you, basically. So we have to be very, very conscious that our innocence is retained. So the tendency for human beings is to find loopholes and take advantage. Yes, the Lord is merciful, but it doesn't mean that He's a simpleton. There's a difference between being simple and being a simpleton, right? So, we are dealing with somebody who's extremely intelligent, but at the same time kind. Don't act in such a way that you take that kindness for granted. So my understanding is that if you just understand that much, we will be more conscious of our actions. I hope that helps, Kaushik ji.
Yes, Prabhuji. And I would love to join your courses, Prabhu. I'll talk to Rajkoti Prabhu and Vanamali Prabhu.
Please.
Thank you so much, Prabhuji.
Anyone else has any other questions or comments? Yes, Induleka Mataji, please. You need to unmute yourself.
Sorry, forgive me. Today somebody asked me a question about Lord Ram, and I was telling how Lord Ram was a perfect king, perfect human being, and she said, but he abandoned his pregnant wife, and I just couldn't give satisfactory answer to that.
Okay. So I'm going to share one or two things with you that might help you. But if you want a little longer answer, There is a YouTube video of mine which has which has several points. I have almost about 11 points on this subject. I could share some audio with you all later, but I'll just tell you the
Yes,
essence.
please.
So I'm just going to give you a couple of thoughts that will help you analyze this story or this aspect better. One thought is that, let me ask you a simple question. Suppose you come across a situation in your life, how would you deal with it? Like, just assume that there's a young young man who has come to America for a job. He's come from India, he's just got a new job, he's married very recently, and he's financially in a very bad situation. And this is his first job, and he's just come to join the job in America. And as soon as he takes up the job and he begins his job, he gets a call from India that his mother is terminally sick and she's dying. Um, Now, what should he do? Should he stay and continue his job and take care of his wife and handle his financial situation properly? Or should he go back to India? His boss tells him, if you go back to India, you'll lose your job. What should he do in such a situation? I'm not waiting for your answer. Let me explain. So, you know what? Whatever that person does, somebody will blame him for it. If he stays back, somebody will say, what a bad son he is. Useless fellow. He's not grateful. If he goes back, he will say, what a irresponsible husband he is. He's not able to fulfill his responsibilities. Now, the interesting thing is, these are known as ethical dilemmas. There are some dilemmas in life which come once in a while in a human being's life. Unless you are in that situation, you won't know what is right and what is wrong. And whatever a person does in that situation, you can't blame him for it, because the situation is such that it pushes you to do some things. So for you and me to sit in an AC room and analyze what Ram did thousands of years back is very easy. And to blame him, to criticize him, to find faults in him is very easy. But you are not in that situation to understand what he went through. That's the first thing I always tell people. The second thing, I'm just giving you some arguments, okay, just so that you can process it yourself. So obviously, in such cases, we don't come to conclusions. We only give thoughts to people. Let people come to their own conclusions. The second is, let me ask you a question. There are two types of leaders in society. There are some leaders who, for the sake of the country, they give up their family. Big sacrifices involved. They don't keep anything for themselves. They're just serving society. They practically give up all their self-interest for the sake of society. And then there are other leaders who, for the sake of their family, they give up the society. They are so much selfishly taking care of the family that they exploit the people, exploit to the core. You'll find both the type of leaders in society today. Like, one of the ex-presidents of South Africa, he had 6 wives. And for each wife, he created a palatial building, took very good care of them. But he is considered to be one of the most corrupt politicians in the world at this point in time. So now the question is, which type of leader do we like? You know what the problem is? The problem is, whichever type of leader you are, you'll get criticized for it. If you are a leader who sacrifices his family for the sake of the country, you'll get criticized. What an irresponsible guy he is. If you are a leader who sacrifices the country for the sake of his family, you'll get criticized. What a corrupt leader he is. The problem with leadership is that no matter what you do, you get criticized for it. Leadership means responsibility. Responsibility means sacrifice. And sacrifice means crying. In a country where the leader is crying, the followers are happy. In a country where the followers are crying, the leader is happy. As simple as that. You decide what type of leader you want. Ram was a leader who sacrificed his family for the sake of the country. And he was not happy. If you study the Ramayana properly, after Sita left to the forest also, even after she left back to the to her abode, went into the earth, Ram never ever married again. He always kept a golden statue of Sita next to him, and every single day he worshipped Sita like anything. That means his loyalty to Sita never changed. His respect for Sita never changed. His connection with Sita never changed. But the situation was different. As far as Sita personally is concerned, Sita was not just a queen, not just a wife, but she was also a queen. So she very well understands what is the duty of a queen. Great leaders, there's a lot of sacrifice that is expected out of leaders. And unfortunately, it's painful. If you look at divorces today, and you study any divorce case, when a husband and wife get divorced, whoever the child is with, the child begins to develop hatred towards the other person. So the child is with the mother, the child develops hatred towards the father. Because the mother keeps telling all the, the painful things that the father has done and things like that. And if the child is with the father, poisons the child's mind about the mother. They develop hatred towards the other person. But look at Sita. It's just so amazing that though she was separated from Ram, Lavakush, the children of Ram and Sita, they did not have hatred towards Ram, towards their father. But in fact, they were the singers of Ramayana. They were the first proponents of Ramayana. What kind of respect they had towards their father. Otherwise, why would they propagate Ramayana like anything across the world, literally? So that means Sita personally did not have any hatred towards Ram. She personally did not develop any negativity towards Ram. And she personally did not put that negativity into the minds of Lava and Kush, her children. In fact, she taught them to respect Ram as a just and as a fair person. Why would she do that if she was so hurt? Why would she do that if she thought that Ram was unfair on her? So all these are perspectives. There are many other understandings. So many other. At least I told you I have at least about 11 to 12 different understandings of looking at this episode. We can someday discuss it in more detail also. I hope this at least gives you some thoughts.
Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Anything else?
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. I think there is one. Haribol, Prabhu. I know we're not supposed to compare, and also another thing is that everyone is good in their own places. Sometimes people try to compare among the siblings of Lord Ram, who has done a great sacrifice, even amongst the wives also of their siblings' wives. For instance, Shatrughan's wife, or maybe Sita's wife, like who has, Lakshman's wife, who has done a great sacrifice. So, is there any mention like that, that the sacrifice of this one is higher of such personality? For instance, Lakshman's wife she could not see Lakshman for 14 years, and so does Bharat also. So though Bharat was there in the same city, but she also could not see that. So this is one question. As I said, that that yes, everyone has their own place, but however, such questions come, and also analytically as a student of a philosophy, we also would like to understand, how would we actually compare such their sacrifices or their devotion towards Lord Ram?
Technically, I don't like to compare devotees, especially compare them from each other's contribution point of view, because each one of us is unique. And the way I understand Ram's character and the way I understand Ram's personality is, Ram would never be happy if we compare one devotee's contribution with another devotee's contribution, one devotee's sacrifice with another devotee's sacrifice. See, In my understanding, sacrifice is sacrifice. It's not about how much you sacrifice. It's about whether you have a desire to sacrifice. It doesn't really matter to the Lord. The quantity never matters. Just like in the building of the bridge, we find Hanumanji contributing so powerfully, and these small squirrels contributing so insignificantly. But from the Lord's perspective, it doesn't matter. You do what your capacity is. Somebody has a capacity to eat, one chapati, and somebody has a capacity to eat 25 chapatis. You can't say the person who's eating 25 chapatis is 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 a more powerful person or a greater person than somebody who's eating one chapati. No, that's his capacity. The body is built differently. The mind is built differently. Our karmas are differently situated, and the way we live our lives are so different. And therefore, it's not really right to compare an orange with an apple, because the comparison is not going to achieve much basically. But rather, what we should really learn is the element of sacrifice involved in everybody's lives. So in the Ramayana, we find every single person in the royal family, has made tremendous sacrifices in their own capacity, in their own understanding, in their own abilities, basically. But the fact that everybody made sacrifices, that's what is most important. I hope that helps, bro. I can see a question here by Vishnuji. He's asking, could you please throw more light on the statement when Lord Ram said that sadhana is my driver? What is the lesson hidden there for us? It's very simple. For a sadhaka, the driving force of his life should be sadhana. That means your entire life should be directed by your sadhana, your discipline. So usually what happens is, most people, they don't have a good driver. And therefore the chariot goes in all directions. It's very important to choose the right driver. Just like if you just study the Bhagavad Gita, who's the driver of Arjun's chariot? Krishna. Why did Krishna choose to be a driver of all the roles in the Mahabharata war? He could have done anything else, right? But he chose to be a driver. Why? To emphasize on this fact that the driver is very important in your life. So, what is the driving principle in your life? That determines who you are. Just like in the Srimad Bhagavatam, we find, when Vasudeva and Devaki were getting married, after the marriage ceremony, Kamsa becomes the driver of their chariot. Now imagine having Kamsa as your driver. It's very, very unpredictable what that driver can do. And once that Akashvani happened, suddenly the driver became violent. He removed his sword and was going to cut off Devaki's head. That's the problem when you have wrong drivers. And therefore, be very careful to choose who your driver is. Why do you think that Akashvani happened at that point when Kamsa was driving the chariot? Because imagine the Supreme Lord is trying to tell through all his pastimes that the driver is so important. The driver of his own mother and father's chariot is Kamsa. So Krishna wanted to get Kamsa off the chariot and stop driving the life of his mother and father. The moment Akashvani happened and the discussion between Kamsa and Vasudeva happened, Kamsa got off and left, and Vasudeva drove his own chariot, or rather, whoever came to drive. But at least Kamsa was not driving the chariot of Vasudeva's life after that. So the point is that we have to choose our driver very carefully. And if sadhana is our driver, it simply means that our priorities become very clear and the chariot goes in the right direction. That's what it means. I hope that helps.
Yes, Prabhuji. Thank you. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Anything else? Anybody else has any questions or comments before we end? Okay, great.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Shivas. Okay. Yes. Please.
Prabhu, just a small question. Were Love and Kush aware that they are singing the glories of their own father?
100%. Absolutely. They were aware. Ram was not aware at that point when they were singing. But much later, Ram also came to know. Okay. Ram felt a very strong connection right from the beginning itself. But he couldn't exactly pinpoint what it was. Much later, he came to know about it.
Okay, okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, I have one little question too. Sorry.
Yeah.
Thank you for your class. Can you just say a little bit more about when you were saying that, Ram doesn't forget, like whatever you do, he does, whatever you do for Krishna, clearly you can see I'm very still self-centered. So it's just like a little motivation talk, but just actually understanding more about that kind of love, that kind of exchange. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for the question. So, one of the most foundational qualities of spiritual growth is your development of gratitude. So, if anybody considers themselves to be spiritually elevated, you actually can test your elevation by the amount of gratitude you have in your heart. Unfortunately, we tend to be very selective in our memory. We remember very well if anybody has spoken anything bad about us or done anything bad to us. Our memory for such incidences is very high. You can recall it probably 10 years down the line. But our memory for anything that somebody has done good for us is very short, very short-lived. Because we tend to selectively forget those aspects. But spiritually elevated people, especially the Supreme Lord, his memory for those who have done anything good for him is eternal. And his memory for those who have done anything bad for him is very short. And that's what is a godly quality. I'll give you one or two examples. At least I'll give you one immediately. When the coronation ceremony of Sita and Ram was happening in Ayodhya, and Sita and Ram were like, there was a celebration going on, right? Dancing, music, and there was all kinds of colors being thrown in the air, and beautiful festival. Sita and Ram were seated on a beautiful golden throne. And suddenly Ram saw Sita was crying tears. So Ram turned towards Sita and asked her, "What's wrong? Why are you crying tears? Is everything okay?" Sita looked at Ram and she told him that she remembered Jatayu. Because while the celebration was going on, somebody threw red color powder in the air. So when Sita saw that red color being sprinkled in the air, she immediately remembered the blood of Jatayu. When she was being carried by Ravan through the Pushpa Viman, Ravan cut off the wings of Jatayu, and the blood of Jatayu splashed across the sky. And when Sita saw this red color powder being splashed, she immediately remembered the sacrifice of Jatayu and she started crying. Usually when you are very successful, when you achieve something big in life, what do you remember? Most people remember themselves because they feel the cause of their success is they themselves. But great people remember the sacrifice of so many others who has helped them achieve what they are today. And that kind of gratitude is so very important. So here is just one example of how the Lord and Mother Sita were so grateful to people who have done anything for them. So like this, there are so many examples of how the Lord remembers, out of gratitude. I hope that helps.
Yes, it does very much. Thank you. And also, I don't know if this makes sense, but sometimes I think when we are sad because of the pandemic, the stress, not seeing family, having limitations, but if I go for a walk and I chant and, the weather is nice and by the river and people are sometimes a simple exchange, like somebody just smiling at you and saying, "It's a beautiful day," uplifts me so much. And I feel like in a way, it's good to remember when being in those circumstances, to be grateful for small things that are positive, that uplift us, that kind of exchange. I don't know how that would relate, but I guess taking shelter of the Maha Mantra and devotees, you know, like friendships that we have, like more advanced, and to think like, please let me serve you forever, like please let me be in your association forever. Things like that, I guess.
Yes, absolutely, you're right.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Hare Krishna. Very grateful to be with all of y'all on this very auspicious occasion of the week of Ram Navami, and wishing you all the very best, and very, very grateful for this opportunity to be with you all and serve you all in some way. Thank you very much, Vanmali Prabhu, for having invited me here to be a part of this Sangha, and very grateful for the opportunity to serve.
Thank you, dear Prabhu. We appreciate and very grateful to you for giving us your association online. I know you have so many requests from so many different temples and so many different places, and your busy schedule, because you have so many other assignments as well. So we would like to express our gratitude to you on behalf of entire ISKCON Boston for sparing your time and sharing your valuable wisdom with all of us by loudly chanting Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol.
Hari Bol. Hari Bol.
I would like to remind all the devotees who are online, if you are interested in buying Shubha Vilas Prabhu's books, I have all sets of the on Ramayana which he has written. So please kindly let me know. DM me, send me a private message. And also we have Shubha Vilas Prabhu's recent book on kids. For the kids, what she has written, the illustrated Ramayana. So that is also available with us. So please let us know, so we can. I mean, it's on sale, so you can definitely have it here in Boston. So thank you once again, dear Shubha Vilas Prabhu, for joining us online at ISKCON Boston. We hope and pray that we'll again get your association in future as well. Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna. And kindly remember, keep us in your prayers, and give us your association as frequent as possible. We would love to have you anytime. And let us know that how we can, our congregation can be part of any of your future projects. We would definitely like to involve them. Thank you.
Absolutely. So I will send you the details of the course. You can share it with everyone there.
Okay. Oh, definitely. Thank you.
Thank you.